All right, welcome back, good people. On this episode, I'm going to talk about starting a podcast. As a matter of fact, that would be the title of this episode, Starting a Podcast. My name is Larry James. I have a company called Speak with Larry, and what that company does is it helps people set up the foundation of their online business. Now, one of the arms that I have attached to that company is an audio podcast that I currently do, one episode every week. On Mondays, I shoot my podcast episode for my company. And as of January the 1st, 2020, which is my objective, I will be kicking off or launching my video podcast. Now, with the video podcast, it's going to have a different format. I'm going to bring in a couple more people who can join the team, which will be my co-host. And what we'll do is we'll talk about different events or trends or topics or relationships. We'll talk about things that are current and things that are not so current. And along that process, we will build an audience. And as you build that audience, you build a connection with that audience. But along the way, you also are able to get sponsors, people who will subsidize, if you will, your process, right? And that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 2, maybe 3 years to get everything up and running to where we've got 5 days of shooting, 5 days of creating episodes. That is the objective, is to create episodes every day, Monday through Friday. And that will happen. But the point I want you to take away from this episode is, how do you do that? I want you to follow me down this path really quickly. I'm going to share some things with you about exactly how to set up your system. And if you're able to understand what I'm saying and set your system up as such, then you'll be able to create your own episodes and generate information to the audience that you'll be creating. So the first thing that I want you to understand is you have to determine the podcast topic. And I just said, on the video podcast that I'm creating, we'll be talking about several different topics, right? My audio podcast talks about business, online businesses, social media, branding, those types of things, along with interviews that I do. And that's basically what I want to do with my video podcast is to do exclusively interviews where I'm talking to a lot of different people, or bring someone in that becomes the fourth person on the mic, if you will, that we can talk about things, right? And that will grow that person's business, and they'll be happy and we'll be happy. That's how it works. And we're doing what we love to do, right? So you have to determine the topic. The second thing you want to do is come with a format. You have to create a format that you're going to do daily. Every time you create your podcast episode, you want to start out with this, go to the next thing, go to the next thing, go to the next thing. See, once you have those things in place, then it's a lot easier to stay current and stay aware so that you don't miss anything, because it's very important that you become consistent with what you're doing. The next thing is you want to come up with a name for your podcast. My podcast name is Speak with Larry. My company, Speak with Larry. Now you don't necessarily have to do that, but if that's something that would interest you, maybe you want to do that. You may want it to be your name. You may want it to be something totally different. But it needs to be in line with what your topic is, right? After that, you want to make sure your domain name is available. Right, your URL. You want to check that to make certain that you can purchase that once you come up with the name. Because you don't want to do all the work and then it's time to come up with the domain and that's taken by someone else. Then you have to restructure everything else, right? After that, you want to make sure your social media accounts are available. So you want to set up social media account, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You know what I'm talking about. Make sure all those are set up so that you can access those for your system. Because if that's not the case, then you're going to have difficulty marketing your information. Because that's what podcasts do. They market information for you and your clients or you and your system, right? Next, we're going to talk about you want to search podcasters to make sure that there's no other podcast exists with that name. Now you go to iTunes and check out all the podcasts that are available, and if you find your specific name there, you have to change to something else. Not the people who already have that name, but you. That's why it's best to do all this up front. Next, we're going to create a contract between myself, who will be the host, and the two co-hosts that I'll bring on, right? Because we need to make sure that we're committed or we're all on the same page. And what I like to do is, with my contracts, is I like 90-day contracts. Because with a 90-day contract, I'm able to find out if you and I are a fit, if we work well together. And if we don't, we can cut ties before it gets too serious and, move on. And no harm, no foul. That's the way I like to keep it. After that, you want to buy your podcast equipment. Things like your microphones, your computers, your editing equipment. You want to set all that up so that you only have to do that once. And then you'll come back to that set every time you record, just like I do here. This is a set. What you see here, you'll see this every time I record this, working up to set up my actual format for the four microphones that I'm setting up. It won't be this set, but it will be a set, right, that I want. And, all that's to be determined, because remember, I'm creating this world. This world doesn't exist. I'm the visionary in this, as you will be the visionary in what you're trying to get accomplished. And you need to be comfortable with that. You need to know that there are going to be spots and there are going to be situations that you're not comfortable with, that you don't know about. And you need to work through that, right? After that, you need to record a couple of episodes for your podcast so you can kind of play it back and see what it looks like, get a feel of everything that's set up, and make adjustments along the way, because sometimes you will need to make adjustments. That's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? Following that, you want to get your podcast art created. What's podcast art? Well, when you click on one of these or you come across one of these episodes, it has what's called a thumbnail that you'll see before you see me, right? That thumbnail is your podcast art. Now, my particular art, you'll see microphones, because my company is Speakwithlarry. And when you think about speaking, in my mind, you think about microphones, you think about podcasts, you think about speaking in public. And I want to bring a microphone to the stage every time I come to the stage, right? That's my way of thinking. Doesn't have to be yours. Actually, I don't want it to be yours, because I don't want you to duplicate. I want you to imitate, right? But if from time to time you find it necessary that you duplicate, so be it. Life goes on, right? And then you have to actually set up your social media accounts. Go to Facebook, LinkedIn, and all that, and go in and register with your podcast or with your videos or whatever system you want to use to create episodes, right? You want to set up the URL, the hosting, the RSS feed, and then you'll be prepared to submit your podcast. And you do all that in different areas. Like my hosting company is called Libsyn, and they host all my episodes, which means they house all the episodes that I create, right? So whenever I need to access those, I go there. When I create an episode, I upload it to Libsyn, and then they give me a link, and I put that link out to the world, right? That's how it's worked. Then comes the time that you actually launch your podcast, which I was telling you my launch date is somewhere around the 1st of January, between the 1st and the 5th of January 2020. Now that's my objective, that's my goal, that's my deadline. That's why I want everything working properly. Is that the way it will happen? I hope. But if it doesn't, guess what? It'll be close enough. We'll start without anybody, or we'll continue on, right? That's how it works. And we'll bring other people on as we go. And finally, on this segment, I want you to be able to promote your podcast. After you got everything set up and make sure all the pieces are working properly, then it's time to promote. That's where the marketing comes in. And we'll talk about that on the next episode. But I really appreciate you guys spending a little time with me going through this process, because this should help you to get your system kind of adjusted the way you want. Because you can do it. Trust me, you can do it. And I can help. I'll see you on the next episode.